welcome back. And thanks for listening to the Adulting is Easy podcast, where we make adulting easier by making money easier. This is your host, Lauren, and I'm joined today by Rocky Lalvani, Profitability Advisor for business owners. He teaches them how to ensure they get paid and make profit a priority. As a certified profit first professional, he implements Mike Michalowicz's profit first system. Rocky started with nothing when his parents immigrated to the United States when he was only 2 years old, and his parents were in their 40s. It was his parents' second time starting over in life as they moved here to experience the American dream. Despite a lot of struggles and his mom passing away when Rocky was 7, he has achieved financial and life success. Rocky loves to share his journey and inspire others to achieve their dreams even faster. Thanks for joining me, Rocky.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here today.
I'm sorry about your mom.
Oh, thank you.
Our goal for today is to make adulting easier for listeners by discussing a personal finance topic, since managing money is a big part of adulting. So today, Rocky, we're going to talk about running a business. And I wanted to start, we saw this in your bio, this idea of success, right? So when creating a business, how do you actually know if it's successful or if it will be successful?
Well, those are two separate questions. All
Yep.
right. So how do we know if it's successful? First of all, most businesses fail. If you look at the stats, they're horrific. I think a successful business has to do a couple things. Number one, the owner has to get paid and paid a fair market wage for what they do. And two, the business has to be profitable above and beyond that, right? So I look at it this way. If I were to go invest in a company's stock, I would expect that company's stock to be profitable, pay all its employees, and then pay me a dividend or grow the value of the stock because it's becoming more valuable. Most small businesses lose money. Most small businesses, even with 7 figures of revenue, the business owner isn't getting paid enough and they are struggling still, and they are not necessarily very profitable. And I think that is the dirty little secret a lot of people don't realize, is how hard it is to actually start and maintain and get a business to success.
So how do we know if it's going to be successful or not? Or does it matter? Should we just know going in that it might not be, and that's okay, and we can take that risk and go in with our eyes wide open?
Yes, but I mean, here's the question: can you afford to lose the money? And that's
Time,
a
right?
that's up to everyone. Here, most business comes down to math, and if you actually do the math for the business and you look at it and actually take a couple of minutes to think about it, and this is not difficult math, you can say this business is going to be successful or this business is not going to be successful. For example, let's just say we're starting a business and they sell a product and the product is $100. All right. If I want to turn that into $1 million business, well, that means I don't know what 1 million divided by 100 is. Let's figure that out. Oops. I got to go the other
10,000?
way.
Is it 10,000?
Is it? All right. Let's just say it's 10,000, right? The question is, can you sell 10,000 of these units, right? In whatever area that you want to sell them. And now comes the rest of the question. So let's just say you actually figured out and you sell 10,000 of these, you make your $1 million. How much did it cost you to make the product that you're selling? If it's costing you $70 to make that product, you've only got a 30% margin. Chances are your business is going to go under. If it costs you $10 to make the product and you've got a 90% margin, you got a good chance of success at that point. And then the next part comes out to, what does it cost for you to market and sell the product? And then what's the overhead of running the company? So a lot of people, they go into e-com, right?
Yeah.
So let's go take that same example in e-com. And let's say I have $100 product. Let's say it costs me $50 to buy it. So I'm going to mark it up double. I'm going to sell it for 100. and I put it on the Amazon platform or one of those types of platforms, they take about 35%. So now my 100 became 65, which means if I pay 50 for the product, I've got to run my business on $15. I've got to advertise, pay myself, pay the, storage place. I got to pay for inventory. I have to do all of these things. And the reality is that's not enough margin to cover it all. So when you sit down and you do this simple math and you look at all the different numbers, you ask yourself, is this going to make money? And how hard is it to sell those 10,000 units? Some things are easy to sell, some things are hard to sell. I will tell you, anytime I meet somebody who's got the next $1 billion idea, I run because the chances of that are slim to none, especially if they've never run a business. They don't understand what it takes to be able to do that. And then on top of that, you got to deal with employees. Look around wherever you work now. Like, are those employees phenomenal or not? That's what you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
And for business owners, the employees are never going to do it as well as they do. So there's all the emotional of
Yeah.
letting go, of teaching people, of controlling the systems. And again, you got to look at your business and say, what does it require? Right. So if I want to run a restaurant, I got to have servers and
Oof.
cooks and all these different things. Right. I saw that. Look, restaurants usually lose money. They're a difficult business. Um, if I go into a different kind of business where there's not a lot of labor. So, like right now, car washes are booming. Why are car washes booming? Because most of them take no labor, right? It's all
Right.
automated.
Yep.
But the thing with a car wash is it might cost you $1 million to put one up. So the question is, do you have the $1 million to put it up and cash flow that? And when interest rates were at 2 and 3%, it was easy. Now that they're at 8%, those deals don't always cash flow anymore. And again, you can sit down and do the math and say, this is how many cars I need to put through. Is there enough population here to do that, or isn't there? And then also just realizing, oh, wait a minute, I'm putting up a car wash. Hey, wait a minute, someone's putting up one across the street.
Yeah.
Oh, my market's now half of what it was. Who gets there first wins. And so these are all the things you have to take into account.
I'm glad you brought up the car washes specifically. But even going back to your example of the 90% gross margins, right? The example where you sell something for 100 only costs you 10 to make. And let's say it's easy to sell. Somebody else is going to run those numbers. And are they going to then have other people entering the market too? That's the thing about it that you shouldn't be surprised about. And that's what these car washes are seeing. I see another car wash going up and I'm thinking, should they have aborted that? Like when they saw the other two, like why did they go forward, you know?
In in our area, there was one kind of self-serve car wash, and then there was this other dump of a place that whatever reason nobody went to. They just put in three of those $1 million car washes, and I think the one brand is better than the other brand. And so they're gonna win just based on branding and how they do things and messaging. So we'll see what happens, you know.
So we're making business sound a little bit scary. Let's demystify some things here. And in my career, I sold business finance training for 6, 7 years, something like that. And something that we would always hear from the people we were training was money, 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 money. Everything is money. And I always had to kind of stop down and remind them like there's revenue, there's profit, there's cash, there's actual words. Like let's be more specific than just saying money. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what specifically those three kinds of money are for people if they're since in case they're thinking about getting into business and they don't know these terms.
So revenue is pretty much what sales are, right? That's how much you sold. So in this example that we were talking about, that would be the $1 million, right? What was your second word that you used?
Profit
Did
and
you say
cash.
profit? Okay.
Yeah.
So profit is after you pay yourself and you pay for all the employees and all your overhead, that's profit. Okay. So if you look at a P&L statement, let's say that $1 million business, you got paid, everything else was fine, and your profit line says you made $100,000. Okay. Now we're talking about cash. Here's where it gets tricky. Let's say in that particular $1 million business, you had to go borrow the money. And let's say your loan payments are $10,000 a month. Well, you put $120,000 out for loan payments. You are now negative $20,000 in cash every year until that loan is paid off. Now, let's just say that you've got accounts receivable, meaning that people don't pay you immediately, they pay you in 30 days. Well, you might have $100,000 accounts receivable. Now you're floating $120,000 at the end of the year to the negative, right? And now let's say I've got inventory and I've got $100,000 in inventory. Now my cash is actually minus $220,000 on a business that was profitable at 100,000, making $1 million in revenue. And I'll be honest, if you talk to 95% of business owners, they don't understand what I just said, and they
Right.
don't calculate it up front to say what's going to happen. And what we always say is one of the biggest reasons for bankruptcy is growth. They
Yeah.
grow so fast, they run out of cash. And when you run out of cash and can't pay people, game over.
Yeah, you run out of cash, you're running out of gas in your car. It's not,
Mhm.
it's not moving anymore because your employees aren't going to sit there and be like, I know you're good for it because I
Mm-mm.
can't go as your employee. I can't go tell the bank, don't worry, my boss is good for it. We're going to grow and then he's going to pay me and then I can pay you. It just doesn't work like that.
It does not. They quit when they don't get a paycheck.
That's a big deal what you just said. And I learned this doing selling training and being in all of these training sessions that I was in when we're talking about business finance. People do not know. I just want to highlight you are exactly right. People do not know this. And this is important stuff to know, by the way, if you're just a member of a business. Understand what is going on around you. Understand that just because your company did record sales last year and they didn't give you a raise, it may not be because they're douchebags. It may be a cash situation, right? I mean, like just be aware of what is going on in a business, even if you're in it. Now, if you're thinking about starting a business, there's a balance between, I think, planning, we're sort of talking about business planning here. What can I sell either my services or my goods for? How much of it do I need to sell? What will my cost be? And planning some of that out. There are some people, though, Rocky, that are listening. I know there are because there's just people in the world like this that plan and plan and plan and never take action.
Mm.
What would you say to people that have an idea for a business, have an outline of a good business plan and it should work, but are just scared to start?
That's normal. So I guess really what you're talking about here is the question is what is truly the risk? And how do you do this without committing to massive spending? In other words, let's just say we're going to do this business. Am I going to go out and immediately commit to a 5-year lease? Maybe not.
Mm.
Right? Am I going to go out and hire 3 people? Maybe not. Can I start this on a small scale and see if it actually sells? And this is where I think people get confused. The first time they offer their product, right? All their friends and family buy.
Yeah.
And then when it comes time to buy again, they all disappear. And so you have to ask yourself, is this truly going to sell? And the way I explain it to business owners, it's like an apple tree. When the fall comes and you walk around the apple tree and you just reach up and grab apples, you go, "Oh, this is so easy." But after you grab that first round of apples, now you have to reach a little bit higher. And so now you're like, uh-oh, I need a ladder. So now you're going up and down collecting all of these apples. And you're like, business is starting to get hard. And now comes, the third month in business, and you're like, I can't reach the apples. I need to market more, right? I need a higher lift truck. And all of a sudden, business kind of ceases. And that's really the question. How long and how durable is that sales process going to be? Are people just going to buy it once and be done? Do you have that constant flow of repeat business? And again, all of this stuff, you can just sit down and map it out, and you can come up with reasonable numbers, and then go ask a couple people in that industry, is this reasonable? Have I made good assumptions, or is this all crazy? And by the way, it always takes twice as long as you think it will, and it always costs twice as much as you think it will. So just put all the fudge factor in.
What about if I don't want to start a business from scratch? What about like buying a small business from somebody?
So this is kind of the hidden secret, right? The hardest thing for most businesses is to get to 2 to 3 million in revenue. That is where the majority, and I don't even know the exact percent, but over 90 something percent of businesses never get to a few $1 million in revenue. If you can go in and buy a business that's already got a few $1 million in revenue, you can borrow a good chunk of it. So as long as the cash flow pays it off, it's it could be a safer path. Now, a couple of keys to keep in mind. First question is, how involved is the owner? The more involved the owner is in the business, the less valuable it is.
Yep.
Okay. How many systems and processes are duplicatable? Like, I go to McDonald's, like, you can go to any McDonald's and you get the same process, systems, service. The cashier might be grumpy. These days, it's all on an app anyway. So you have to ask yourself, is there a systematized business here? Um, and then is there something changing in the industry, right? Clearly, $1 million typewriter business back in the 80s doesn't exist today, right? Is something happening in the marketplace that is changing? And then the other thing is, how many clients does this $1 million business have? If they only have one client, that's an issue.
Even
If
if they
they've
have
got,
like five,
yeah,
right? If especially if one is 50% of their business or something. That's a great point.
and it's their brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Now you're in real
Well,
trouble.
yeah, because they're gonna leave if you buy that business.
Mhm.
They don't care about you.
And so that becomes easier to evaluate all those risk points and say, is this a risk? Is it not a risk? What's happening in the marketplace and so forth. And it makes it easier to make those types of choices. And yeah, I mean, that is a definite way of doing things.
So whether you're starting a business or buying a business, does profit first work?
It works no matter what. All profit first is a cash flow system. All right. Here's the truth. Most people have no idea how the cash is coming and going in their business. You have one big pot of money, and all you see is a pile of cash, including the money you borrowed and the money you put in, and you have
Yeah.
no idea what's going on. What profit first does is it takes all the money and it gives every dollar a job. And so if you said you're going to be profitable and you have a 10% profit margin according to your business plan, then every time a dollar comes into your business, you should be able to put 10 cents in the profit pot. And if you said you're going to take a salary and this is what it is, you should be able to put that money aside in your pay pot. And then if you said, well, you have to pay taxes, so let's put our money aside for taxes. And now you say, my business needs to run on this much money. And if you run out of that money, then you know your business is spending too much. And businesses are like people, right? We all have lifestyle inflation. We all don't pay attention. The bills come in 2 months later. You're not paying attention. And so all profit first does is it sets up a system so that every dollar has a job. You know its purpose. It goes there and it's used for that purpose. And so you get the early warning signal that, hey, you're spending too much, because just like business owners are people, and the reality is we all spend too much.
What advice do you have for business owners when it comes to their personal finances versus their business finances?
So, A, they have to be totally separated, right? Stop treating the business as your piggy bank. Um, and B, you also can break the corporate veil if you're doing these things back and forth. And if you don't have clarity on what's truly going on in the business, you have a problem. So some people starve their business by taking too much out. Some people don't even know what's going on because their personal and business finances are mixed. And so they don't know where the problem is. Um, and at the end of the day, though, you have to make sure you're sound personally, because if you aren't personally sound and you can't make your mortgage payment and put food on the table, you're going to be a desperate business owner, and nobody wants to do business with a desperate business owner. And so there's an emotional component to all of this that does not get talked about.
So if anyone's listening and they're thinking of buying a business or starting a business, what would you tell them?
Um, do the math. Like, sit down and do the math. And if you don't know how to do the math, well, we kind of will teach you. Or you hire somebody to do the math for you. Those are your choices. I mean, there are a lot of great books out there that will help you figure out how to do the math. You just have to ask yourself, are my assumptions good? Because there's problems when you assume stuff and you don't know based on the industry whether or not it's true. Making money in business isn't easy unless you create an easy business, and you can create easy businesses. You just have to sit down and figure out how that works. I think the biggest problem people have is they don't charge enough. Like, you see a lot of guys, especially in the trades, they're underpricing themselves. And because of that, they're going to struggle. And they don't realize that people will pay them more than they're charging. They have a lot of fear and anxiety over that.
Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I own my own business. I was a W-2. It took me forever to get started, but I sat down and I reverse engineered my entire business so that I knew this is what had to happen. These are the numbers. This is how I'm going to do it. And then part of the reason that we're here talking about Profit First is because I partnered with Profit First. What that did was it kind of gave me that McDonald's brand name, right? It gives me that in the marketplace. And so sometimes you can go and you can partner with a franchise. I will tell you this, a lot of franchises don't make money. So be very careful on who you partner with and how the agreements are. And again, it's just about doing the math and making sure that it works.
And being prepared to not move forward. Just because you invest a lot of time doing the math, creating this business plan, maybe you've told some people you're going to do it, but if the math tells you not to do it, you got to not do it. Don't keep going, right?
Yeah. And I think too often people go into business because they're passionate about it. So, like, and we talked about the restaurant business. That's a classic of a passion business that, quite frankly, most restaurants don't make money. It's just kind of the joke of the industry. So don't go into that kind of a business day. It's got to make business sense, not passion sense, unless you want to have a hobby and lose money at it, which is okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Well, and if you can mix a great business plan with passion, I mean, there you go.
Yes, that is key. But you have to make sure and test and figure out and see if that's truly the case or not.
How can people get in touch with you, follow you, find you, Rocky?
Everything that we talked about today, we do in much more detail on the podcast Profit Answer Man. They can always go check that out. And we talk a lot about how to actually do what we talked about today.
All right. I'll put some links in the show notes as well for social media. You guys follow me on Twitter, X at Adulting is Easy, Instagram at Adulting is Easy Real. If you like this episode, you'll also like episode 67, Starting Your Own Business, or episode 140 about online businesses. Thanks again for listening, everybody. Hopefully, Rocky and I have made adulting a little easier for you.